Khamzat might not have a fight booked yet, but while he waits for a potential showdown with Draus Dupay, he's going all out with his training. Seriously, this guy is dedicated. Please hit that like button to support our channel. In a new video shared online, Chimaev was spotted getting some incredible work in on the football pitch. And believe me, that wasn't the only training Khamzat managed to squeeze in on match day. In another video, he was seen using some slick grappling moves on an opposing player, literally tripped him with a clinch move. Apart from getting cardio through football, Khamzat's clearly been putting in serious gym time. Between the video of him tossing around that opposing player and those recent pictures online, he's looking absolutely jacked. One MMA community member even joked that Buff Chimaev is back. Despite Chimaev's incredible physique and dominant grappling skills, Kyobaro believes he'd actually have an advantage if they ever faced off in the octagon. During his appearance on the Jackson podcast, Kyo confidently explained that after training with Chimaev in Sweden and Vegas, he feels he'd have an edge against him compared to other middleweights.
I have an advantage against all the guys that should face him because I trained with him for like 5 weeks over there in Sweden and then after in Las Vegas. So I kind of know a little bit of his system and what he wants to do next and what he wants the guy to do next so he can advance on his system. So I think I have an advantage of that because I studied a lot of this. I was paying attention and all that. I was helping him for sure, but I was paying attention in everything.
With Kyo just outside the top 5 and Chimaev expected to fight for the belt, we might actually see these former training partners square off soon. How amazing would that be? Last night, Magomed randomly decided to unload on Jon Jones through several fiery social media posts. He started with, "Johnny Steroid Machine was very disappointed I beat Alex. Please fight Big Tom Aspinall. Stop running." Then he tweeted a handshake emoji between him and Tom Aspinall. He didn't stop there. Magomed went on to quote a tweet from Jon Jones from May 3rd last year and said, "Big onk time, stop running." Tom Aspinall saw these comments and clearly agreed with Magomed, sharing his tweet on Instagram with a handshake emoji. The tension is building. Bilal's wrestling might be his most devastating weapon, but ahead of his title defense against JDM, the champ is vowing to keep things standing. During an appearance on The Coach and the Casual, Bilal revealed he isn't planning to shoot for a single takedown against JDM. Instead, he wants to put on a boxing masterclass and prove he's the best boxer in the UFC.
I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna outbox Jack. I'm not gonna shoot one takedown, and I'm gonna show him the meaning of Canelo hands. I'm gonna show the UFC fighters, the fans, that I'm the best boxer in the UFC, the best boxer in the welterweight division. Trust me, you guys want to tune.
Of course, just this past weekend, fans watched Magomed use a grappling-heavy approach against Alex Pereira after previously promising to keep the fight standing. Will Bilal do the same thing, or will he stay true to his word and box his way to victory? Only time will tell. As we've seen in the past when Muhammad faced Sean Brady, his relentless pressure opens up his striking game, allowing him to land devastating shots thanks to the constant takedown threat. Meanwhile, the champ gave fans a fascinating insight into his camp, which is taking place during Ramadan.
Shafkat got hurt, so then it was like next in line, who is it? You know, there were talks about different guys trying to figure out who it was going to be. I said, who has the highest win streak? And Jack was on a 12-fight winning streak. He was coming off of a big win, and he was supposed to fight Leon. He has a big country behind him. He's not the loudest guy in the room, but his fights are loud. They're going to say, oh, his boxing is better than you. Now I got to show him the Canelo hands. For myself, I'm good everywhere. I could grapple, I could strike, I could wrestle. I could make adjustments where these guys can't. He could only win a specific way. I could beat him in many different ways. He was one of the guys that was like saying Bilal deserves a title shot when I was on my way up. It's a respectful thing, so there's not going to be anything like bad blood or anything, but the bad blood comes from you're trying to take what I had. I worked hard for this. I myself to get to this belt. It's disrespectful because you think you're going to come into my house and take my belt from me. That's my...
Following his loss to Bruno Ferreira in this past weekend's Pereira-Analia card, Arman Pion has been removed from the UFC's roster. The defeat to Ferreira made it 3 straight losses for Patroon, who's now become a free agent. MMA Fighting's Damon Martin broke the news on social media, pointing out that although Patroon's been removed from the roster, the promotion could bring him back after negotiating a new deal. Arman has been removed from the UFC roster per UFC UFC officials. His most recent fight was the final on his contract. He dropped his past 3 straight fights. Obviously, he can be re-signed, but for now, he's been removed from the roster. The release comes on the heels of Arman notably getting a point deducted by referee Mark Smith for back-to-back low blows against Fiera. This controversial moment sparked tons of criticism online, with many wondering if this situation influenced the UFC's decision to let him enter free agency. It's pretty rare for a fighter to lose a point during a fight. Arman parts ways with the UFC with a 3-4 promotional record and an 8-5 professional record. During fight week for Israel Adesanya's fight against Nardan Imavov in Saudi Arabia, Izzy and Michael Venom Page created a video for Izzy's YouTube channel. While both are known primarily for their striking, the two were seen getting in some intense grappling rounds in the new video released this week. Considering MVP's last fight was at 185, they probably weigh about the same right now. Despite this, MVP is pretty open about the fact that his fight with Shara Bullet at 185 was just a one-off, and his next fight will be at 170. No word yet on when Izzy will return to action, which isn't surprising given that the last style Bender said after his last loss that he wanted to take some time to figure out his next move. As for MVP, although nothing's been finalized for his next fight, his plan is to stay active throughout the rest of the year. Let's look at some UFC fight updates that might have flown under your radar, starting with changes to the UFC Fight Night Kansas City card next month. According to Aaron Broner, Mitch Ramirez is out of his fight with Ahmed Hanada. Fortunately, the UFC found a short notice replacement, Evan Elder, who was originally scheduled to fight Markel Arrows this weekend. Elder is riding a 2-fight win streak, while Hanada is fresh off a Contender Series win last September. Looking ahead to the UFC Vegas 106 card in May, Luana Santos is reportedly set to fight Tanar Lisboa in a bantamweight showdown. Santos will try to bounce back from a loss to Casey O'Neill, while Lisboa returns after a year and a half away from the octagon. Last but definitely not least in today's updates, it sounds like Paul Craig is preparing for a move back to 205 after 3 straight losses at 185. In a social media video, one of Craig's strength and conditioning coaches gave fans insight into what's next for Craig.
I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I was down at Boxing Science today down in Sheffield with Paul Craig and with Mark Ewan, although he's not one of mine, so we don't care about him. But the reason we're going down to Boxing Science is obviously we like to get our testing done down there. Why? Because we do it at the start of camp and it allows us to prep for the camp ahead. It allows us to pinpoint specific areas that we need to work on, specific areas that we need to develop. It keeps me right as well, removes me from the testing so that I can make sure that my program and training protocols are working correctly. But we do it at the start of camp, like I mentioned. So that might mean Paul Craig has got a fight, but at light heavyweight. That is right, we're going back up to light heavyweight. Like I said, don't know if I've said this, but I'm saying it anyway, because what's Dana White going to do? Nothing. So we're going back up to light heavyweight. Middleweight was just a bit too much of a cut. We tried it out, didn't work. We're going back to light heavyweight. Can't tell you who we're fighting or when we're fighting. But
with Craig having a win over Mamad and Liv, light heavyweight might have just gotten even more interesting. Ronda Rousey might not have any plans to return to the UFC, but a recent training session with Kat Zano has become the ultimate tease for her fans. After having her second child with former heavyweight Travis Brown, Rousey is back in the gym and working hard to get back into shape. In a video shared on her Instagram earlier this week, she can be seen getting some mitt work in with one of her coaches before the video cuts to Rousey and Kat doing some grappling rounds. She wrote, "Only Cynthia Vance JP could shoot my struggling through postpartum mat and make it look this good. Thank you, Kat, for stopping by and helping me relearn how to move. I forgot how fun it could be, considering Ronda said last summer that she isn't neurologically fit to compete because of concussions. A return to action seems unlikely. However, with the UFC getting involved in grappling and promotions like Karate Combat having grappling events in the pit, maybe there's a chance we could see the former champ in a grappling match if she continues training regularly. Islam Makhachev's next fight might not depend on the upcoming Bilal Muhammad and Jack D.A. Molina fight after all. Despite reports suggesting that Makhachev will wait to see how things play out at 170 before deciding what's next, Michael Bisping has shared his prediction for the next title defense in a new YouTube video.
So realistically, there's a ton of options for Ilia Topuria, but the reality is Islam Makhachev has got to fight somebody soon, and so does Ilia Topuria. Justin Gaethje wants to fight for the belt, but Justin Gaethje really doesn't give a right now. I think Justin Gaethje is happy making the phenomenal amount of money that he is and just going out there and being able to be himself. So realistically, any of those guys that I just mentioned, Islam, Arman, Charles, Justin, any single one of them, and it might be one of them, but it's probably going to be, if you ask me to bet, I think Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria, because
as Charles Oliveira's manager said earlier this week, he believes the lightweight title will be up for grabs this summer. The big question is, will Makhachev be defending the belt, or will the UFC put together an interim title fight? Rasul Chamsadov, a friend of Khamzat who's been hanging out with him recently, went on TikTok Live and potentially leaked the UFC 317 card. And if he's correct, we're in for an absolutely stacked event. He revealed that Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev will be on the same night as Khamzat versus DDP in June during International Fight Week. This lines up with what Islam has been saying about his next fight. Khamzat's friend mentioned it's not official yet, but says the announcement will come soon. Here's what he had to say. It's in subtitles.
On a déjà signé, donc maintenant, faut trouver la bonne date. Topuria, Makhachev, l'équipe. Il y a Makhachev, Topuria, ils vont combattre le même soirée que Khamzat Chimaev. C'est comme ça, en juin. Soyez prêts. Les deux combats auront lieu le même soir pour les ceintures. Ça va être la plus grosse soirée de l'année du UFC. Khamzat contre le champion, frère. Plessus là, je sais pas comment on s'appelle lui. Comme j'aime pas son blaze en plus. Bon allez, comment ça va? Ça n'a pas été annoncé, mais ça a été dit par moi. Mais bientôt ça va sortir, t'inquiète. De Plessus, ouais, un truc comme ça. Bon, allez, comment ça va? Bon, Chimaev et Topuria, les deux, je pense qu'ils vont gagner. En tout cas, je vois Topuria 60% gagner contre Islam. Ah, j'ai lâché un sacré info, frérot. Franchement, j'ai lâché un sacré.
Important to note that Ilia Topuria recently tweeted about a huge announcement coming soon, which does line up with what Khamzat's friend is saying. And with a new president, Khamzat shouldn't have any more visa issues, as UFC 317 is set to take place in Vegas. Everything he's saying seems to be lining up, but only time will tell. Who do you think would win if they fight in June, Khamzat or DDP? Let us know in the comments below.